I'm Ashton Addison from the Crypto Coin Show, and today on Blockchain Interviews with Alejo Pinto, the Chief Growth Officer from Pontem. Alejo, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for having me here. Excited to dive into it.
Definitely. A lot to talk about. I know Pontem is working on quite a few different things. I would love for you, if you could explain to start off on sort of what is Pontem, what are you guys building, what's the mission and the vision of the protocol, and then we can dive into all the details.
Yeah, so the best way to think about Pontum is as a product studio or as an analog game studio with several individual products underneath. So the two products that are live now are Pontum Wallet and the LiquidSwap AMM. Those are category leaders on Aptos. We have over 40-50% market share and trading volume for the AMM. The wallet is hard to gauge specific numbers that are on chain, but we're pretty confident we're up there in the number 1 or number 2 spot. And now that we have these two beachheads, we're filling out the entire vertical integration for our product stack and going down to the execution layer. And with that, we have Lumio, which is now on testnet, and that's going to allow us to launch the Move VM and in the future other alternative VMs in a credibly neutral way on Ethereum, so that as traditional tech, traditional finance companies, let's say Fidelity, BlackRock's, come to Ethereum to deploy their applications, they have the choice of deploying with Move, Solana VM, Cosm Wasm, C, whatever you want to deploy with. Right now, it's possible with Move. And then not be vendor locked into the EVM, which carries a lot of user, let's say, like user error in a way. Mm-hmm. Like there's a lot of ways you can shoot yourself in the foot. Mm-hmm. And the way that the code is then structured is like very janky and patchy. And I can go into details of this, but just on paper, objectively, Move and Rust are better structured languages. And when you're building mission critical applications, which is going to be our financial infrastructure, if we really do want to trust US treasuries, US cash, the stock market on the blockchain, we need a foundation that is better than JavaScript. Think of EVM. This has been compared various times, right? EVM is kind of like or Solidity is kind of like JavaScript, and you wouldn't build your banking mission critical infrastructure on JavaScript. So we're trying to enable in an incredibly neutral way these alternative VMs across different blockchains, because people right now are vendor locked into these languages and these virtual machines. So that's the vision with Lumio, and that enables us to entirely, essentially, lift and shift our tech stack. So the AMM, the wallet, connected composable protocols, and then deploy on Ethereum and in the future other chains where we can support Move and other alternative VMs.
Wow, incredible! That is quite a bit. And now, so there's a wallet, there's an AMM, which is the same as a DEX for the most part. There may be differences you can explain. And then the whole virtual machine is like a protocol that allows you to connect different blockchains all together as well. Is that correct?
So think of the virtual machine as a decentralized, credibly neutral way to deploy these applications, the AMM, DEX, the wallet, but then also horizontally lending protocols that are built with Move. So imagine if think of public clouds, public blockchains as public clouds, and imagine if you're vendor locked in to only build with JavaScript. You can only build literally your backend infrastructure with JavaScript. That's a really bad user experience. So what we're trying to do is upgrade the public cloud, the Ethereum public cloud, so that you can also deploy with this new language Move, which is Rust based, and it's just a lot better. And I can go into some of the details of why Move is better than Solidity. But yeah, I mean, it's like we're essentially upgrading Ethereum, the public cloud infrastructure, so that we can take our applications, which are fundamentally better because they're built with a better virtual machine, with a better language, and then be competitive on Ethereum. And this can be applied to other blockchains. Initially, it'll be isolated, like these environments are going to be isolated, but we're also researching ways to connect them.
Very interesting, Alejo. And with that Move language, I'm personally have not heard of it before. I know Rust, Solana is based on Rust language, and most people know that Solidity and the Ethereum ecosystem has been around the longest in the blockchain world, but I have not heard of Move. Is it just that it's brand new, or is there a reason that other blockchains have not chosen this language yet?
Yeah, so Move has actually been around since 2019. It was first inception at Meta or Facebook. This was purpose-built for the Libra project. Move, Sam Blackshear, he was at Sui, was one of the inventors of Move. He has like a PhD in computer linguistics or computer languages. And you can think of Move as the best of Solidity and the best of Rust. So it's design after Rust. So you have resource model. It's a static type language. It supports concurrency natively. So you can do parallelized transaction execution. So parallel VMs has been like a trending topic. So you're able to do this natively with Move. You also have safety features built in natively. Like you can do formal verification to make sure that, so for example, the Kyber swap hack was an overflow error. So that could be built in. So you could have like a third-party library on Ethereum, which you need to trust to do the formal verification, or that could be built into the VM natively, which it is in Move. So Move is essentially, the attempt at taking the best of what exists, which is Rust. And then what's cool about Solidity, again, no dig on Solidity, but it's kind of like a proof of concept. Like think about it from the people that built the EVM and Solidity. Like it was 2014, Vitalik, even Vitalik himself didn't think his idea had any legs. He tried to do something akin to colored coins on Bitcoin. And he was like, guys, what if we just do this separately? It can have proof of work, maybe transition to proof of stake eventually. And we need a virtual machine. So we have essentially programmability, these Turing complete software that can then be deployed and create these decentralized applications. And that had never been done before, right? And they literally had to come up with a virtual machine. The virtual machine is very simple. You have these operation codes that are like, math, essentially like, add this, subtract this, divide. And then you need an abstract language to create the business logic to say, operate these opcodes to do what this abstract, business logic is saying. And when they did that, they had to come up with an entirely new language. I believe at the time, Gavin Woods, who's like at Polkadot now, was the CTO. And, this is like having to put together an entire language so you can launch this thing. And so far it worked, it's worked pretty well, but there's also a lot of, like the biggest issue, which I don't know if they took into account, was dynamic dispatch. So this led to re-entrancy errors and the infamous DAO hack, where like literally Ethereum split into Ethereum Classic because there was a smart contract hack, and they literally forked the chain. Whether you believe in the principles of immutability or not is up to you, but they literally forked the chain to give the money back to people, and that was Ethereum, right? And that was due to a smart contract error, which if they had used Move from the beginning, re-entrancy errors wouldn't have been an issue. The DAO hack would have never happened, right? So, that's all to say that Ethereum, it gave it a first try with the EVM, but we don't have to be stuck to this like proof of concept language that was shipped. And future iterations for future blockchains. So DM now, Aptos, Sui, right? They chose Move because that's what they incubated when they were at Meta. And it is purpose built for blockchains. Therefore, there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to port it over back to Ethereum and say, look, we don't have to be stuck with this proof of concept that was kind of like rushed into market. It does work, but it was kind of rushed, and there's a ton of, improvements that could be done. And that's where something like Move comes into play. And the fact that no one has done it, it's like a big market opportunity to go and do it.
I appreciate that backstory, Alejo. And I was around during the DAO days, but it's interesting to hear it from sort of the programming language perspective and the specific issues with Solidity and why we're now moving to version 2 of programmability and version 3 with these new programming languages that are better. But with DeFi specifically and decentralized finance applications, it seems that right now, because probably in part because of the network effect, a lot of the DeFi apps that were built in 2020 and when DeFi really started to explode were based on Ethereum. And there's a lot of total value locked in there still, which will eventually probably move onto these new Move VM ecosystems, whether it's through the help of Pontem or through other mechanisms. Can you explain exactly how that would work in making the functionality and the security better for the current DeFi apps that are on Ethereum through Move and through Pontum?
Yeah, so if you think of the upgrade paths for these protocols, there's two, and people, users out there should be aware of these. So when a protocol has upgradability, that means that there's people out there with multi-sigs that can upgrade the protocol. Now that is something people should be aware of, because that same upgradability can lead to vulnerabilities. Like the developers could turn malicious, or that multi-sig could be hacked, and then potentially that protocol be upgraded to withdraw all the funds. At a withdraw function, all the funds in there are withdrawn, right? Look at Serum. This happened to Serum. Everybody freaked out when FTX collapsed and no one knew who had the upgrade keys to Serum, right? Go check the docs of all your favorite D apps and make sure that they're actually decentralized, that there's no upgradability paths. And if there are, then make sure that the multi-sigs are, secured by trusted people, and keep in mind that at any point in time, those trusted people could get hacked or could be malicious, and then, essentially, take away the money that's in that D app. On Ethereum, so this is more so, you'd see this more on like the newer chains like Solana and Aptos, etc., where like the upgradability, they even built in upgradability into the Move VM, so you can choose to deploy your contract with upgradability. That's how common this is. But again, it's like a design architecture from the developers to code in how decentralized they want these applications to be. So look, Uniswap is immutable. So even if you held a gun to the head of the developers, they couldn't take the money out of there, right? Mm-hmm. That's good. But then that leads to these upgrade paths where you need to launch like V1, V2, V3, and then all the liquidity needs to migrate from V1 to V2 because the upgrades are like entirely new contracts. So that's all to say, in a long about way, is that the next versions of these protocols, there's no reason why they wouldn't be able to be launched in Move and Rust, right? If you have a credibly neutral way to deploy applications in Move, and you're seeing this with Sushi, who is now on Aptos, or PancakeSwap, who's now on Aptos. These are incumbents in EVM that are now started to migrate and have versions on Move. And then as they launch future versions, do they want to continue maintaining EVM and Move, or if they have something better like Move to continue maintaining future versions, would they just translate to the better language? And that's the bet we're making. And I think it's possible. Like, just future versions will be in Move. Older versions will still be relatively, people might still use them, but you would expect most people to migrate to the newer versions. And then if you have composability between EVM and Move, which we have in the same environment on Lumio, but you could also have composability to other EVM chains like Base and OP Mainnet, et cetera, other L2s that are EVM based, you can still do contract calls between, let's say, an Aave or a Velodrome on OP Mainnet that enables you to still have like API calls into Move contracts. So we're building this in a way where you still maintain composability with EVM. So all the legacy stuff that's been built can still work. And then as you develop new contracts, new versions of your products, new integrations, you can still maintain those legacy contracts and, just like build with Move into the future. Yeah, I mean, we're just trying to give people choice, and with choice, I think, comes the ability to, for this stuff to get more widely adopted.
Definitely. I appreciate that explanation. Now, I want to look at that Uniswap example that you gave as well. They've gone from version 1, version 2, version 3, and they upgraded the contracts. And yeah, it was like people had to merge the liquidity in to the new version. Now, how much harder would it be for Uniswap to say version 4 is now changed the programming language into Move? And what are the main incentives or drivers that for the benefits of the users and the platform itself by moving into the Move VM for version 4?
Yeah, so for an end user perspective, it's somewhat marginal improvements. So for example, Move natively, you can do parallelized transaction execution. So you could have two pools running in parallel. So you could have wrap ETH and USDC and wrap Bitcoin and USDC operating at the same time. Right now, the EVM is sequential, so you can't do that. However, there is coming, so caveat, there is coming parallelized EVMs, right? So that's, you could still do that with EVM. but Move supports this natively. Arguably, it'll have better performance. Also on cost. So each transaction might cost you less gas. So this is good for bots that are operating and, need to manage their profits and gas. So there's like these marginal improvements, which is, again, comes from the backend infrastructure, the contracts, having a better base or better foundation than EVM. And then you also gain things like the safety feature, so you don't have the re-entrancy errors that could happen, which is a major hack that can happen. You have the native prover built in, so you can do formal verification. To get all these benefits, for the end user, it should feel relatively the same. You're performing the same actions, but again, it'll be probably like a little bit cheaper, faster. But for the developers, right, that care about this stuff, it's like, okay, now we have a more solid app, less likely to get hacked, performing better. And I think that has a network effect, right? If a marginal improvements on performance and safety probably has a network effect, because if you have A and B and they're both a commodity, the one that has the marginal improvement on performance and safety is probably more likely to get ahead, right? So I would say those are the benefits. The drawback is, the Lindy effect of EVM. But over time, if we have more applications built with Move, then that Lindy effect should start to catch up with the EVM.
Okay, good to know. And I read recently that Pontem had just raised $6 million for seed financing for the L2 Lumio. Can you talk a little bit more about Lumio, and with that raise closed, what are the next steps in growing out that part?
Yeah, so Lumio right now is a proof of concept on testnet, and we're able to scale the team and hire more people to take it onto mainnet. Essentially we need a lot of resources to do that.
Awesome. And does AI play a role in all of this? Now that we're upgrading the programming languages, making everything better, I feel like AI made huge strides in 2023, and it's slowly creeping its way into making blockchain better as well. Is there an AI play with Pontem?
Yeah, AI at very different levels is interesting. So right now we actually have an AI product that's called Pontum AI. You can go on pontem.ai and try it out. It's an LLM that we've embedded with crypto information. So you can ask it things about Aptos, things about Ethereum. We have on-chain data on there. That's very useful. That's kind of like superficial level use of AI, because so AI fundamentally is a product around data and compute aggregation, right? So right now that's in Microsoft, that's in Azure servers, or maybe Facebook will have, or Apple will have their own servers, and then they control all the data, they control what gets published. So like when you go on ChatGPT and you're like, I don't want to be just like, show me some poop, show me like an image of poop. And it's like, oh, that goes against our content policies, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, it's poop, it's feces, like whatever. We see poop every day when you're picking up your dog's poop. But now we're literally being censored from looking at images of poop. Like that's kind of scary. So anyway, imagine if Google did that. Imagine if Google was like, sorry, we can't show you images of poop because of our policy. And like the only interface we had to search for stuff was this like centralized entity that now is literally thought controlling us. So anyway, how do you fix that? You decentralize the AI. The data and compute aggregation can come on chain. So you could put a lot of this data on maybe like IPFS, a lot of the like the GPUs that are used for mining. You could create networks of GPUs that then provide compute for these LLM models to be trained and operate. So I think there's more interesting stuff coming for the interception of blockchain and AI, and it has to do with the decentralization of those data structures, right? So like I personally wouldn't trust OpenAI with, the stuff that I want to think about and, ask the LLM. I might trust like my own machine. So I might trust like, a server in my house that I can like, build an LLM to answer questions and maybe like replicate my own thoughts. Like maybe I feed it all my thoughts and it becomes like an LLM of me. But I wouldn't trust that. I wouldn't trust that to, AWS or Azure, or Microsoft, right? But then your server in house is not going to be as powerful as like billions of dollars of infrastructure, like literally huge server farms that Microsoft can maintain this, what is assumed to be like a sentient being, right? Like the AGI is, assumed to be a sentient being. So the question is, where do you want this sentient being to be living? How is it going to be controlled? Like just extrapolating AI 100 years, you're going to have a sentient being. Is that sentient being going to be Microsoft, or is that sentient being going to be free? And if it's going to be free, it probably has to live on the blockchain, right? That's like the only machine that humans can't shut down, like Bitcoin and Ethereum, they can't shut it down. So yeah, I mean, I think as AI becomes more developed, and that's just LLMs, right? You can think about these for machine learning algorithms for setting parameters on these protocols, right? So a DAO, what's a DAO? What's a corporation? A corporation is a centralized autonomous organization, right? It's like Facebook, it's centralized by Mark. Mark has 50 or Elon at Tesla, right? Centralized autonomous organization. Like Elon isn't doing everything. There's a bunch of people doing stuff, but he can say, let's go A or B, and then it moves that way. A decentralized autonomous organization, you replace Mark, you replace Tesla with these tokens that have literally on-chain governance rights to update the parameters of the organization, whether it's, trading like a Coinbase or, lend borrowing like a bank. Now the end users that have these tokens have the literally ability to vote on the parameter updates, right? And these can be more complex. Like you could have end users upgrade, that's pretty dangerous, but you could potentially have users upgrade the protocol to have new features, right? And then, okay, so that's a decentralized autonomous organization. It's still people making decisions, right? And it's on the blockchain, so it's programmable. You don't need like to trust a horse and a telegram to like deliver the news and then someone to make the decision to put it in. Like if people vote on the blockchain to do it, it literally happens, which is pretty powerful and also dangerous. But now we're starting to migrate from centralized autonomous organizations to decentralized autonomous organizations. And then the decentralized, decentralized autonomous organizations, I don't know what you would call this, maybe like artificially intelligent, decentralized autonomous organizations. Imagine the inputs into the parameters no longer being humans, now being like algorithms. So the algorithm, so you could set the parameters for the lend borrow protocol LTV to be X or Y, right? That can be like a human made decision, or it could be an AI that's learning, that's like taking all these inputs from the market and then updating the parameters. And then you remove humans from the equation. You should probably still have humans kind of like check to make sure that shit doesn't go wrong. And like this, like theoretically today, you could do this. You could have an organization that's run by AI, and then it's literally, and then imagine that AI again becomes sentient and is able to make its own decisions. So like, okay, you have an organization that's a DAO and it's generating profits through like this protocol that's like trading and lending, borrowing, whatever. Now it has a treasury of $1 million. What if that AI is like, hey guys, I want to invest in cars. I think cars are the next thing. We're going to have autonomous, just like we have autonomous trading, we're going to have autonomous cars. So then the AI says, okay, I'm going to put this $1 billion or $1 million or whatever and buy a bunch of Teslas. And then that's going to feed our and like that could be done without humans at all, right? Like you could literally have these robots running organizations. And I think unfortunately we're beyond the tipping point of the AGI or like these autonomous robots just kind of like taking over the economy, taking over everything that we do. And it'll kind of be like planes, right? Like right now you can think of Bitcoin as like the Wright brothers or whoever, like literally riding on a bicycle off a cliff and flying. That was like Bitcoin. And 100 years later you have jets or that can break the speed of sound, or can get close to the speed of light, maybe, right? Maybe like drones that can. And now similarly, I think we're going to wake up 100 years and look in hindsight like, damn, like we let these robots start taking over the economy. And like, is that good or bad? I mean, if you have ownership in the robots, potentially, right? But if you don't, you might have just lost your job.
Very interesting, Alejo. And I think you're completely right. It's a great analogy about the Wright brothers with Bitcoin. And with the introduction of AI, it just grows exponentially faster every year. It's been going for quite a long time, but in the public eye, the release of ChatGPT just 1 year ago, and now the few versions later, 1 year later, are multitudes faster. And that example about the AI DAOs. I definitely think that's coming. I'll be looking out for the AI DAO projects in the near future here. So yeah, it's a lot to follow because of the exponential growth. It's only going to continue to be more stuff, and it's like, how do you stay on top of it as a human to make sure that you don't lose your job, or that you at least get a piece of the pie so that you can contribute and be rewarded?
Yeah, I just hope that we create enough value with these robots and the people or whoever is in charge of distributing the resources. Just make sure that everybody has enough food and shelter and water, and we can all be happy. I wouldn't mind if my food, shelter, and water is covered. I wouldn't mind, being like an artist or,
Yeah.
learning an instrument. But we need at least like food, water, shelter, like basic needs met. And then I think people can be happy beyond that without financial. But I don't know. That sounds a little bit dystopian though.
Well, we will see. And so I'm curious, we don't have a lot of time left, Alejo, but I'm curious on what your focus is in the near term here with Pontem and Lumio, say in the next 6 months or throughout 2024. What are you focused on in the project, and what are sort of the next things that the public should expect to come out?
Yeah, really focusing on growing the current products that we have. So AMM and wallet, and then by extension, as we launch onto Ethereum, Lumio adoption there. So, look to see more use cases for these. Don't want to reveal too much information on what we're planning with LiquidSwap, but expect, really low latency, like high performance DEX, which I think hasn't really been done concertedly yet, and making that essentially a norm or a standard for people to come use DeFi. That's something that we're in the works, and I think within the next 6 months we'll be able to launch, and excited to see come to life. I think like just to give a little bit of alpha on Aptos and some of these next generation blockchains, you can start to match the performance of centralized exchanges. So a big reason people use FTX or Binance or whatever is because you don't have to wait an hour for your transaction to go through. You don't have to pay like $4 to do a basic trade. But on Aptos, Solana, Sui, these next gen blockchains, it starts to feel a lot like a traditional Web2 app. And stuff like, and like this is a simple one, like why are people still using Binance and OKX when like FTX imploded? Like why are we still using these centralized apps when we have alternatives that are on chain? You custody your own keys. And I think the reason is that the infrastructure isn't there for it to feel like a Web2 app, but that's coming.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm looking forward to
here, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been, there's definitely just as I think will happen in AI, there'll be an exponential growth where there'll be that aha moment, whether it's Aptos and MoveVM making a better user experience for DEXs, and then all of a sudden there'll be a pivot point where over 50% are using the decentralized in sort of more safe and secure way, where they're trusting themselves rather than trusting whoever's at the back end of Binance to not have another FTX episode. So I'm looking forward to that. With the testnet that's going on with Lumio, and just with the communities involved to follow along with the updates, is it an incentivized testnet, or is there anything that people can do to test it out and contribute to Lumio and Pontem? What can they do?
Yeah, we're rolling out the testnet in phases so we don't get DDoSed. Right now, some community OGs are able to use it. So folks that have used the NFTs or LiquidSwap on Aptos have been able to use it, but we're opening up more in phases. There's a wait list if people want to sign up, and they can get notified as we open up more phases and more opportunities to get onto the testnet.
Sounds great. And I can leave the protocol links, social links, and waitlist and everything in the show notes below as well. I really do appreciate you coming in with all of this insight. And there's just so much to learn, especially with the amount of different blockchains, VMs coming out, new technology that's growing even faster, and throw AI in the mix there. It's hard to keep up. So I do appreciate all your insights, Alejo, and wishing you the best with Pontem and Lumio moving forward. And let's definitely follow up in the near future.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm happy to come on and talk about, unrelated stuff to my project, tangentially related. So talk about other VMs, talk about L2s in general, talk about DeFi, even if it's not, products that we're building. I think outlets like this are useful to get information out to people for them to be informed. I think as people learn more, you'll realize it looks a lot like traditional Web 2, but just with some small caveats that are very important, like custody your own keys. Don't just give them to FTX.
Yeah, no, definitely a great
Same
point.
but different. Yeah, same but different. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Alejo. I will talk to you very soon.
Awesome. Take care. Thank you.